This lesson will be on 9-4, solving quadratic equations by using the quadratic formula. When we're solving a quadratic equation, we have three methods that we can use. First, we can start by factoring our quadratic equation. So when you solve an equation by factoring, you're solving a quadratic equation. The second method would be graphing. If we graph out our quadratic equation, we can then see the x-intercepts, which would be our answers to a quadratic equation. The last method would be to use the quadratic formula, which we'll be doing today. A quadratic equation in standard form is ax squared plus bx plus c. This has to equal 0. So basically everything on your quadratic equation has to be on one side so that it's set equal to 0. Your quadratic formula is x equals, so remember we're solving for x in a quadratic formula, x equals a negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, and the whole thing is divided by 2 times a. Make sure you copy this down. You'll need it for the rest of the lesson. In our first example, let's take this quadratic equation and solve this by factoring. If we solve a quadratic equation by factoring, first of all, our entire equation has to be set equal to 0, which it is. Once everything is on one side, as it is, we can start by factoring this. X squared minus 2x minus 24 factors into two binomials, and we're looking for the factors of 24. Remember, 1 times 24 is 24, and we're looking for the factors of 24 that subtract to give me a negative 2. So the factors of 24 are 24 and 1, 12 and 2, 3 and 8, or 4 and 6. 4 and 6 subtract to give me 2. So in order for this to subtract and give me a negative 2x like I need, the 6 is what has to be negative. So x minus 6, let's get rid of all of the extra right here. X minus 6 and x plus 4 equals 0. And now we'll solve. Our two answers are a positive 6 and a negative 4. We're getting this by setting x minus 6 equal to 0, adding 6, right? So we get an answer of x plus 6. X plus 4 equals 0. If we subtract 4 on both sides, we get x equals a negative 4. We're going to take this equation and solve this by using the quadratic formula now. So our quadratic equation is ax squared plus bx plus c, which means our a is equal to 1. Our b is equal to a negative 2, and our c is equal to a negative 24. All we have to do is plug in 1, negative 2, and negative 24 into our quadratic equation. Our quadratic equation is a negative b plus or minus. I'll explain this a little bit later. That comes at the very end. So plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, and the whole thing is divided by 2a. Now notice I'm setting this up with parentheses so I can plug each one of the values in. So a negative b, and b right here is a negative 2, plus or minus the square root of b squared, b again is negative 2, minus 4 times a, which is 1, and c, which is a negative 24, all over 2a, and a is 1. Now we can go through and simplify each part of our quadratic equation. Here we have negative times negative 2, which gives us a positive 2. Plus or minus, remember I'll come back to that later. And here we have a negative 2 squared. Negative 2 times negative 2 is a positive 4. So when we have a negative number and it's squared, it has to be in those parentheses, we get a positive number. Here we have negative 4 times 1 times negative 24. Well, a negative times a negative is a positive. And then 4 times 24 is 96. That is all over 2 times 1, which is 2. The next thing we can do is actually add the 4 and the 96 together. 4 and 96 gives us 100. So, let's look at what we have. We have 2 plus or minus the square root of 100. What's the square root of 100? 10. And that's divided by 2. Here's where we can look at the plus or minus sign. We break our problem up into two problems. We have 2 plus 10, so 12 divided by 2. And we have 2 minus 10, which is a negative 8 over 2. This means that we have two answers. We're going to get 12 over 2, which is 6, negative 8 over 2, which is a negative 4. Remember, we used the same exact problem as in our last example, where we factored. This time we used the quadratic equation. Both times we got the same answer. In example 1a, our a in our quadratic equation is equal to 1. Our b is equal to 3, and our c is equal to a negative 18. Let's start plugging this into our quadratic equation. X equals a negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all divided by 2a. So, negative b is 3, so we'll be plugging in a 3 right here. Plus or minus the square root of b squared, again we'll be plugging in b right here, which is 3, minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is a negative 18. And then on the bottom, in our denominator, we have 2 times a, and a is 1. Now let's simplify. We have a negative times 3, plus or minus the square root of 3 squared is 9. Remember to be careful here. We have negative 4 times 1 times negative 18. The negative 4 times the negative 18 right here will give us a plus. Negative times a negative is a positive. Now 4 times 18, which is 72, divided by 2 times 1, which is 2. We can now add the inside of our square root. 72 plus 9 gives us 81. So we have a negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 81, which is 9, over 2. And at this point, we'll break our problem up into negative 3 plus 9, which gives us 6 over 2, and negative 3 minus 9, which gives us a negative 12 over 2. Our two answers are 6 divided by 2, which is 3, negative 12 divided by 2, which is a negative 6. In example 2, our a is equal to 1, our b is equal to a negative 1, and our c is equal to 6. If we plug this into our quadratic equation, we have a negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4a times c all over 2a. So, a negative b, we're plugging in a negative 1, and a negative 1 here for b. A is 1, c is 6, and on the bottom we have 2 times a, which is 1. Now if we simplify this, a negative times a negative right here will give us a positive 1, plus or minus, let me rewrite that, we'll have 1 plus or minus the square root of. A negative 1 squared is 1. Now remember to be careful with this part right here. We have a negative 4 times a positive 1 times a positive 6. So a negative times a positive is a negative. 4 times 1, 4, times 6 is 24. All over 2 times a, which is 1. So 2 times 1 is 2. When we do 1 minus 24, we get a negative 23. We can't take the square root of a negative number, so our answer for this question is no solution. In example 3, we're going to have to take this 3 and move it over to this side so that everything is solved for 0. Now, our A is equal to 1, our B is equal to 2, our C is equal to a negative 3. Now we can plug everything into our quadratic equation. A negative B plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. Our b is 2 and 4ac, our a is 1 and our c is a negative 3. And on the bottom we have 2a and a is 1. Now let's simplify. Here we have a negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 2 squared right there is 4. This section right here, negative 4 times 1 times negative 3. A negative 4 times a negative 3, because it's negative times a negative, we'll get a positive. 4 times 1 is 4, times 3 is 12. That'll be divided by 2 times 1, which is 2. We can add this part together. 4 plus 12 is 16. So now we have negative 2. I'm going to do this in another color here. So we have a negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 16 right here. The square root of 16 is 4. And that's divided by 2. And now we can break our problem up. Negative 2 plus 4 is 2. And that's still over 2. Negative 2 minus 4 is a negative 6 over 2. So our two answers are 2 divided by 2, which is 1, negative 6 divided by 2, which is a negative 3. And here's our last example, guys. In this question, right, we're given x squared plus 4 equals 0. So everything is on the left side of our equation equals 0. However, a quadratic equation is ax squared plus bx plus c. Your a is in front of your x squared. So our a right here is equal to 1. Our b is always in front of an x. Well, we don't have an x. We don't have a bx, so b is 0. And our c is always the number either added or subtracted. Our c is this 4 right here. So when we start to fill in our quadratic equation, x equals a negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Our b is 0, so 0 goes in here and here. 4ac, so we have negative 4 times a times c, and on the bottom we have 2a, and a is 1. Negative times 0 is 0, plus or minus. The square root of 0 is 0 again, so we can just cross that off. So inside of our square root sign, we really just have negative 4 times 1 times negative 4. Well, a negative times a positive times a negative is a negative. 4 times 1 times 4 is 16. And on the bottom, we have 2 times 1, which is 2. Remember, we can't take the square root of a negative number here, so our answer is no solution.